Hi, I'm Ben Ashcroft, and this is the first presentation that I've ever done. So I'm a little bit anxious, but happy to share my experience, strength, and hope with everybody who is interested in watching this. So basically, I'm just going to start from the beginning. I was born in a place called Mixington in Halifax, and around two, my mum split with my dad because he'd beat her up and he got sent to prison, and we went to a women's refuge. Um, and from there, we moved to a place called Sorby Bridge, which were a nice place, really nice rivers, canals, kind of a really nice place for me. But my mum got married quickly to somebody else, and as a young child, kind of experienced stuff children shouldn't be seeing at that kind of age. He was very violent, aggressive, and all them types of things. And a culmination of things. By the end, by the time we were 6 or 7, the police came and he refused to go, and he was basically hit with a police baton and basically restrained and dragged out in front of us. So again, not something we should have seen as children, but he didn't care because I believe he put water in the electrics and tried to kill us. He once had us in his car and drove as if he were going to drive into a wall with me and my sister in there and my mum. So some quite traumatic early childhood experiences, really. From there, my mum obviously finished with this guy and got divorced, and we moved again to another place in Sorby Bridge. For me, I loved it there. I actually thrived in the time we moved. I was going fishing every day before school, after school, any chance I got. I love fishing and still do. But my mum got with somebody else as well, but this guy was different. He was a decent guy from what I could work out, and he used to play rugby and football, and kind of that inspired me to kind of play rugby outside of school. I was captain of my junior school, inside school, and still playing, going fishing and stuff like that. But I noticed a change in my behaviours from very young. I would start off by playing knock it or run and knocking on doors and running off and getting a chase because it changed the way I felt, and that kind of behaviour kind of increased slowly the more I think about it. And from there it were kind of garden hopping, so we'd jump over people's privates in the back gardens and go through all these gardens, which were fun at the time. Yeah, probably couldn't do that now because I'm not sure how that'd look, but so yeah, I was changing my behaviours. My mum, she'd go out quite frequently, and or the both of them would, and kind of would spend a lot of time with either a babysitter or somebody else, and it was the house was always nice, clean, tidy, very nice house, always food in the cupboards, but there was a lack of love, a lack of connection, a lack of feeling wanted, I suppose, or just having a general structure or routine. I was allowed out from a very young age of 8 and 9 to go fishing on my own, walking miles up rivers and canals and fishing at dams and stuff, and people, there were other fishermen there, and there could have been any types of people, but luckily for me, they were actually genuinely decent people, and no harm came to me. But it could have, there was always that risk, but I don't believe that risk were ever taken into consideration. So yeah, from that as well, I mean, we used to play in woods and stuff like that, and actually get up to quite a bit of mischief to where I lived, and then just down the road there were another kind of little area, and we didn't get on, and all this stuff started happening at a young age and stuff like that. But I think that's just part and parcel of living as a kid in different areas, I suppose, at that time. And after a few years, my mum by the time I got to 10, she split up with this next guy, and decided then we were getting moved back to Mixington. Moving back to Mixington was very, very different from living in Sorby Bridge. At that time, there were little gangs. There were a top end, a middle end, and a bottom end, and we lived bang in the middle end of that. So, and at that point, there were only me and my sister and my mum living in that house, and it were quite scary. It was quite frightening, because I didn't want to go out in case I got bullied or I got attacked or any of these kinds of things because of all these gangs, because I didn't know anyone there because I moved it to, so I didn't know anyone in this area. So it was very different going back and living there as opposed to living in Sorby Bridge. Well, after a little while, my brother moved home, or moved in with us, and I'd never shared a bedroom with him before, and I did on this occasion, and he used to listen to all this dance music and all this stuff, and I loved that kind of stuff, and I loved having my brother and sharing a room with him. But not only that, it gave me access to go outside because he knew people in that area. He was a few years older than me, so that gave me freedom to leave the house, which is a big thing when you've been stuck in for months and scared to go out. And you know, I got freedom from that, and you know, quite quickly my behaviour started deteriorating even more. In Mixington there were a reservoir, and the police used to run like a splash scheme in summer for kids, and they'd do canoeing and kind of keep them entertained, I suppose. And I was with a group of lads, and one gave me a pellet gun which were a repeater, and they're like, oh, shoot them, and trying to impress or trying to, I suppose, trying to be liked by others and maybe even respected, and I did, and I shot this canoe, and basically this canoe person, the person in the canoe, started shouting, and we run off, and I went home. And the day after, there were a knock at his back door at home, and there was this police officer there. He was quite a big chap, and he used to play rugby at quite a high level. I do know his name, but I'm not going to say it on here. But he was quite a high level, and no ever happened, you know. And I don't know why no ever happened. There was no consequence for that action, and I carried on being misbehaving, and I suppose getting in more trouble, and just joining in with people around me. And my role models were just other people that were a bit older than me, and none of them were really positive role models, let's say. And after a while, you know, my mum started stopping out longer and longer, and after a little while, she just didn't come home. And after a few days of being at home, eating jam sandwiches and custard creams and that kind of stuff, it were because we couldn't cook. And after a few days, I rang the police, and within a short period of time, the emergency duty team had come, and the police, and top and bottom of it is my sister went to her friends, me and my brother went to a children's home quite close by where my brother had been living with my dad before he came back to us. So he knew people in that area as well, so which were good for him because he was going out and obviously meeting these friends and stuff, and I just joined in with the other young people in the home and refused to go to bed this one night, and I got threatened I'll be arrested if I don't go to bed, and that night I shit myself and I went to bed. But after a few days they'd found my mum, and she didn't want me and my brother back, but she wanted my sister back, so at that point I felt unloved and wanted and cared for. And I think that something in that moment clicked, and there was a stark change in my behaviour, almost like I just didn't give a shit. I wasn't bothered, I didn't feel wanted or loved anyway, and I was joining in with other people anyway, you know, so. And then it came after a week of being in this children's home, and we refused to go to bed, and we were running around this house and inside rooms and then back out of rooms and just messing stuff around. No violence or all, but maybe some verbal abuse, but we got threatened. If you don't go to bed, we'll ring the police, and I just said, well, fucking ring them, because I wasn't bothered at this point, you know, after everything I'd been through. Within that week, I'd been split up from my mum, my sister, and now I'm living in a children's home with my brother. No one ever asked how I was, how I felt. You know, they didn't kind of ask or reassure me about my mum. They just said she didn't want me back, and I found that quite tough to take. Yeah, so this night I refused to go to bed. They said, we're going to ring police. If you don't go to bed, I'm like, fucking ring them. And within 10 minutes, police were there. Me and two other boys were arrested. I were physically assaulted by one police officer and told it's yes sir, no sir, you little bastard, when you get to custody. So that wasn't really a great start or introduction to police. They could have, in my opinion, dealt with it in a different way, but it wasn't, and it is what it is, and it was what it was. And yeah, I was taken to a police station in Halifax and then given a couple more slaps when I got there and told it's yes sir, no sir, you little bastard, when you get in there and see custody sergeant. And at that point I'm frightened and I was scared and I'm thinking shit, like I was terrified. And I went in and I got booked in and I got put in cell 11, no light, no cover, no mattress, just pitch black really, apart from square glass windows in there, and stayed there for a few hours. And then the emergency duty team came back out and I got read my rights and got charged with a Section 5 public order offence for breach of peace for refusing to go to bed, which sounds ridiculous now when I'm speaking about it. And then I was told that I'm now getting moved to foster parents 11 miles away from Halifax. And so in that week, you have to understand that it was quite a traumatic week, being split up from my mum, my sister, and now my brother, as well as being charged with a criminal offence. It was a lonely place, it was scary, it was isolating for a short period of time, but then I just started running off and meeting up with my brother and the other friends that I'd met in the home, and at that point there were quite a few homes in Halifax, and we'd all meet up and we'd drink and we'd hang around town and we'd be pains in arses, and we'd go in supermarkets and just trash the place, and you know, and at that point I was getting arrested for violent disorder, affrays and assaults and all stuff that I wouldn't have imagined when I was living in Sober Bridge and going fishing and playing rugby. That kind of wasn't on my agenda. That wasn't kind of the life that I expected to start living, and it was real. That was the real consequence of my own actions for doing what I was doing. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I was an angel, because it's not true. You know, it's quite simply, it's not true. I was a very challenging, a complex young person that was angry, I suppose resentful, and mainly just didn't care about anything. And most of all, I didn't care about myself, which is a sad thing, you know, at such a young age. And I was running off and I was getting moved continuously to different homes, to foster parents and all these places. And by 12, 13, I was going missing. I was sleeping in waste paper skips, bus station toilets, just anywhere, really, because I didn't want to go back. And generally I was intoxicated as well in one form or another with whatever substance. And you know, by 13, I was taking heroin, and which no 13-year-old should be taking heroin when I look back with hindsight, you know, and it's shocking when I think back, you know, and that was kind of the transient life I lived as well, moving around everywhere and taking drugs and drinking and getting in trouble. And by the time I was 14, I moved to Manchester, and shortly after that I was put in a secure unit to have a full psychological assessment, which were ordered by the court, and I had escorts that took me from court to the secure unit, and I didn't get this full psychological assessment in the first month, and got took back to court, and they extended it for another month. It didn't get done. Went back to court, got extended again, didn't get done. And at this point, I'm in a secure unit on welfare grounds for my own safety, to protect myself from myself, and put with child killers and murderers and that kind of stuff. And still don't sit right now, but again, it's what happened, it is what it is, and it was what it was, and I have to accept that. But the it's not the things I would have done if I were in that position to make them decisions. But after a few months I got released, and I went straight back to my friends who were in children's homes and in care and that kind of stuff. I carried on taking drugs, back on the heroin, drinking, being a pain in the arse, just, getting arrested regularly. But because of being hit and assaulted so many times by police, that also became different, because I wasn't scared of police. I didn't fear the police. I didn't respect the police. I didn't like the police. I didn't like any authority figure. My social worker moved me. The police arrested me. My youth offending team had me locked up. But also, while I'm saying that, the youth offending team did way more than the social work side of stuff for me. I had a sessional worker called John, and he were amazing when I had time with him, and I taught him how to fish. And he were a caring guy. He were an older guy as well, and I still contact him now and again, even to this day. And he was such a decent man, but because of the chaotic life and the chaos around my life, I was getting moved all the time, and I couldn't keep in contact with him and have the sessional work that I was supposed to be having. And after a while, I ended up getting 6 months in Medway Secure Training Centre, which was at best a riot, or it certainly was very unsettling. And I'd been restrained in children's homes before, and that was just like pretty ruthless, but it was nothing compared to Medway. Medway, the group 4 would have the fingers in the back of your ears, there'd be pressure in your nose, you'd have a knee in the neck, your arms would be twisted all sorts of ways, your legs would be twisted other ways, and then there'd also be kneeing you insides. And when I look back, it was blatantly assault. There were no restraint about it. It was assault, and I've seen that happen on a regular basis to kids of 12, 13, 14, 15. Hit with shields, riot shields, no de-escalation tactics, no talking, just straight brutal restraints or assaults, in my opinion, or fact. And yeah, when I came out of there, it was not very different actually. I just came back out and I carried on, and again it just built up my resentments and my hatred and my anger towards the system or systems. At that point, I just hated authority figures. I didn't want to be near them, and they just, for me, because I was so angry, I couldn't listen. I didn't want to listen. I just wanted to hit out at everybody, and that's what I kind of did. And by the time I was 15, I was still, again, taking heroin and all different drugs, if I'm honest. And, I didn't really know anything about addiction at that time. I didn't know nothing about addiction. I had no knowledge about addiction, no education around it whatsoever, no help, no interventions, no therapy, no nothing, And at 15, I got locked up, and 16 months in a young offenders institution, and that was kind of a bit of a light bulb moment for me. Although I was very ill for the first week or two because I didn't understand about addiction, and I obviously had a habit, and I was addicted to heroin to a certain extent. But again, I didn't know about addiction, or a rattle as they call it, at all. And I have to give credit to Weatherby in small ways, because the education I enjoyed. Every time I were in a structured, secure place, I thrived on education because I like learning. I liked being around education, and and a lot of people saying, "Oh, they're just uneducated." We're not uneducated. We are undereducated, And I think there's a big difference between uneducated and undereducated. And I was undereducated at that point, but I thrived in education. And yeah, as bad as it sounds, I actually enjoyed quite a lot of time in there. And for me, it was probably different from most other young people going into a young offenders institution, because by this point I'd had 33 convictions. I'd been moved 51 times to 37 different placements. So when I went in there on the wing, the first person I saw was a friend of mine, and he was the wing cleaner, red band, and I was looked after from day one. And when I first came out for my meal on the evening, I knew about between 10 and 15 lads on that wing, which again were nice for me because it made my transition into a young offenders easier, because I knew people already from all the different places I'd lived. So again, that were easier for me. But yeah, I got my head down, and at that point there were no TVs and all this stuff. It was like cleaning your floor, reading books, and not maybe doing exercises in your cell if you wanted to. And it were just, I don't know, it were almost, I were almost institutionalised to a certain extent, I think, because it didn't affect me massively. Although it did on the way to the young offenders, but that were because I didn't know what to expect. But once I got there and I seen other people, then it made it a little bit more comforting to me. Once I'd finished my sentence there, I came out of there and I got put in a bed and breakfast, quite a few miles away from my hometown. I didn't have any money. I was eating cornflakes with water for a week on an evening, and the bed and breakfast, it wasn't like a full English breakfast, it were cereal with milk. So the only difference is I was having cereal with milk in the morning and cereal with water on an evening, which is disgusting practice and abandonment by the state, and it's not acceptable, you know. And I know this stuff still goes on to a certain extent, and I find it disgusting. And you know, would this be good enough for their children? I don't think so. It won't be good enough for mine, and I don't expect it to be good enough for anybody else's. And from there, my mental health deteriorated quite rapidly, and before long, just after a week, I were in a mental health hospital on a mental health ward, and yeah, it were pretty horrendous, to be honest. And from there, I kind of joined Project Challenge after I left there and got put in a hostel, and joined Project Challenge, 6-month course on improvised rescues and first aid and skiing. British Alpine Ski Award 1 and 2 star I even got for that. I didn't really like it though, but you know, take what you can at that point. And then Duke of Edinburgh and stuff like that. And there were 18 of us that started that course, and if you got to the end, you got to go on an expedition. And out of 18 of us, 3 of us got to the end of it, and we went to Italy and walked across the Alta Via 1 in the Dolomites, which to this day is still one of the best experiences I've ever had. I love that. First time I'd had a passport, first time I'd been out of the country, first time that I was starting to enjoy sort of my life, you know. And when I finished that, I got a job in KFC for 2 weeks, and it didn't work. It wasn't for me at all, to put it mildly. So, and then I kind of just got by, you know, doing stuff, and I ended up meeting my son's mom, who I was with, you know, for just over a year, and she got pregnant with my son, and in 2002 my son was born, and he was born at 11:23 in the morning, and I went outside in the afternoon to have a cig and seen some other friends that I know and lived with in care and committed crime and took drugs with some of these people or substances, and they told me that one of my best friends who I've grown up with, committed crime with and lived with, has died. He came out of prison that day and he took heroin and he overdosed, and instead of ringing an ambulance, They took the £40 out of his pocket and his coat and dragged him into the hallway and left him to die for £40, which that doesn't sit right, you know. I mean, so again, traumatized. My son was born. I was happy and proud he was born on that day, and then find out one of my best friends has died that same day. So again, mixed messages in my head, and not very easy to take, very unbalanced and unsettled. But you know, I managed to get on and stayed with my son's mum for 6.5 years, and then I had to leave because I just wasn't getting on, and it wasn't fair. And I ended up back in a psychiatric hospital for about 12 weeks, which were tough. And I was very ill at that point. I didn't want to live. I didn't feel like I had anything to live for. Even though I had my son, I was just so introvert and just didn't care about living. I'd lost a passion for life pretty much completely, and it was a pretty horrendous experience staying there for a few months. And yeah, I came back out of there, and luckily I managed to get a little bit of stability and started kind of associating with friends and doing stuff, playing football and stuff for a local team, well, on a Saturday and Sunday. So I managed to get by that way for a while and met new people and stuff. And then someone said, why don't you write a book and stuff? I'm like, write a book? I'm like, longest thing I've ever wrote is a prison letter. I'm computer illiterate. I am shit with grammar, punctuation and spelling. Still not that much better now, but improved. And it was quite a long drawn out process because I was learning how to do stuff all the time. But I did it, and I self-published it, and it got 25 5-star reviews on Amazon. And then I did a walk with Frankie Owens, who wrote the Little Book of Prison, and he had a publisher, Waterside Press, and I sent them my book after some work with a couple of people, Paul and Amanda, who helped me out massively, and ended up getting a publishing deal, which is amazing for someone like me and where I've come from and how computer illiterate I was and how undereducated I was. I mean, when people ask, they say, what did you get for your GCSEs? And I say, straight A's. Absent, you know. But I am gutted about that a little bit because I did like education and I would have liked to have filled my full potential at school and got the grades that I probably could have got if I'd have had that stability and consistency without being moved, and managed to build positive relationships and trust with people. But instead I was kind of, how I see it is like pass the problem, just kept getting passed around the system to different places, different towns, different cities, different wherever. No one wanted to kind of take responsibility or actually build a positive and meaningful relationship where trust is established with me. It didn't happen, you know. Everyone would quick just off you go. You know, some placements I were in were 24 hours and I was gone. They'd have me gone. They didn't want me. I unsettled their home or whatever it was, you know. Which is, again, it's quite sad really when I think about it, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, so kind of, you know, I wrote a book, and that kind of like a business card into certain work and stuff like that. And once I'd got this publishing deal, and everyone wanted a piece of me, they wanted me to speak at this event, speak at that event. But you know, in the early days, I definitely got exploited, and it were almost like I wasn't worth paying, but I was definitely worth having there for free to speak and educate people or show them some of my strength and hope, but I wasn't worth paying for. And that's wrong. I'm just as valuable as any other professional. I have a lot of lived experience that people can't learn in a textbook or at university or college or anywhere else. You know, this is first-hand lived experience, and we should be valued for that, in my opinion. And well, I just think that's a fact. We should be valued. There's no getting away from it. There's no cutting it. There's no grey area. We should be valued for what we do. Other people, as well as myself, we contribute massively, and almost feel less than when we're not, and sometimes feel a part, instead of part of, which again is not right. And things have changed over years, but I'm not so sure how dramatically that's changed, to be honest. But I do think more people are seeing value in our lived experience. So kind of, and then once I wrote my book, I got offered to go on a European project with British Association of Adoption and Fostering and a National Voice, and work with leading experts from around Europe, and trying to get a best practice model for all 28 European countries using remand and intensive fostering for young people and alternatives to custody for young people, which were quite successful. I run the focus groups on there and coordinated the focus groups and chose the young people for that. So they weren't cherry picked, they were genuine young people that had something to say, that had relative experience, and they're the people we should speak to, because it's alright, I have my care experience, but they're current, I'm not, and it's about what they've got to say now, and that's what happened, And in that European project, I got asked to go to London and choose a few young people to sit on a panel to ask the European experts questions, and them to ask the young people questions, and I did, and it happened to be the day after legislation were brought in for staying put, for foster kids who can have the right to stay in the foster home till 21 if it's all agreed by everybody. And all these young people were from residential care, and they were visibly upset, angry, pissed off, and wanted to know, what about us? Why are we different? Some of them had brothers and sisters in foster care, but they were in children's home, and they are being afforded the same right as their brothers and sisters. And that, for me, was disgusting, because at that time I didn't actually know that it excluded, at that point, 9% of young people living in residential care. And, it frustrated me, and I made a call to Ed Nixon, who has been a solid support to me since the very beginning of writing my book and stuff, and he were on motorway at that point, and he rang me back, and then we spoke to some other care experienced people, Lisa Cherry and Rosie, and there were about 6 of us that started the campaign to ask for residential care to 21 as well, and afford them the same right as the brothers and sisters who might be in foster care. And that's something we've been passionate about from the very beginning, and not a lot of people seem to want to support us, but also on the other hand of that, we did get a lot of support, but it took a lot to get people to support, to do the right thing. What I don't understand, how we can discriminate against some of our most vulnerable children in society. To me, that is disgusting. It's bad practice, and it's inhumane and unfair. And kind of from there, I did all this stuff, and in 2015, as much surprise to me as probably a lot of other people, I got smacked through the door, and it was like inviting me to Buckingham Palace as thanks for my service to children, young people, and families. I thought it were a joke. I genuinely did, but at that point, very weird, very surreal, actually more surreal than when I were on drugs at times. And I couldn't get my head round how my friend Ed Nixon had been a social worker for 40 years, had no recognition whatsoever, but I've been around for a few years and I'm getting all this recognition. We're finalists in 2 national awards. Didn't win it, but it's taking part that counts apparently. But yeah, I didn't want to go to Buckingham Palace because I didn't think I deserved it. But Ed did and does and always will, and I asked him if he'd ever been to Buckingham Palace, and he said no. So my one plus were Ed Nixon, because I wanted him to experience what I were experiencing, because he deserved the credit more than me. And we went there and we had a nice day. The cucumber sandwiches were disgusting. Buckingham Palace and eat cucumber sandwiches, I couldn't have imagined that. I thought it'd have been all this nice stuff. There were nice food there and stuff, but it wasn't quite what I thought. But anyway, and we went a bit earlier and we were a bit cheeky. We walked through the actual Buckingham Palace and came out where the Queen pulls in after you go through the three arches at the front, and we walked through the middle of the arches at the front, and we looked around, and at the fences there were all these people taking pictures and screaming and shouting, and very, very, very surreal, very, very weird. They clearly weren't there to see us, but I don't think they knew who he was either, so we'll take that. Yeah, so, and they were that, and then I worked as an intensive support worker on a mobile provision, working with kids with complex and challenging behaviours, and I loved the job, and I did really love the job, but again, I believed certain things could have been done differently and should have been done differently, but what do I know? All I get told is I don't have to justify myself to you, and then they would, and yeah, pretty sad because I loved that job, but I had to leave that job also because my mental health was deteriorating at that point, and I left that job and I was gutted, absolutely gutted, and then I had a dog that I'd had for 15 years, and I had to have him put down within 2 weeks of leaving this job, and eventually I relapsed and took drugs again just for some relief, just to change the way I was thinking. I had images in my head of people I'd seen hanging from trees. I couldn't process things, and again I ended up in a mental health ward again, and came back out and got clean for a bit, and then relapsed, and then got clean for quite a while, and then over the last sort of year of just over a year, I've had a detox. I had a detox in June and came out 3-4 weeks. My mental health had deteriorated again because I got the help with addiction and the knowledge and the education around it, but what wasn't in place was the mental health side of stuff. And being dual diagnosed is it's more difficult, obviously, because you've got two diagnoses of addiction and mental health going on at the same time. And at times I stopped taking my mental health medication. I tried hanging myself, the tree snapped, I went to train tracks and train drivers see me. On 2 occasions in one night I could have been gone, so therefore something is looking out for me. Must have been, because I've been in so many situations throughout my life. I've been physically abused and emotionally abused by foster parents, and I got my files as well, and when I got my files it was 95% negative about me, not very many nice things about me whatsoever. But the main thing I got them files for, because I wanted to see what happened to the foster parents that had emotionally and physically abused me. And as it turned out, there apparently wasn't enough physical evidence, which is ridiculous. But and I did the Viper video, got videoed, and the police and everyone, even in the report, said I was believable, and that were real to me then, and you know what, it's still a little bit real now, because you don't forget certain things in your life, especially traumatic events, when you're miles away from home, living in a completely different place, on your own, isolated, and being abused. It is not nice. It is not nice whatsoever. And yeah, so yeah, kind of, where am I now? I'm slowly getting my stuff back together, and I'm starting to get a bit of balance in my life, because over the last sort of year it's predominantly been about addiction and getting a knowledge and education around it and stuff like that, and getting my mental health sorted out. And the last time I came out of detox, I had in place a new CPN who is the best CPN I've ever had by far. My old CPN was very uninspiring, and you could see he'd had enough. He was drained. He had no motivation for that, and he's been on secondment now. So I'm lucky that I've got a new, bright, fresh, inspiring person that wants to communicate, involve me, and look after me, and contact me, and actually see me every 2 weeks face to face. And I can have a decent conversation with her. She actually cares. She's got passion for what she's doing. She wants to make a difference. She wants to help me help myself make a difference. She don't want to do things for me. She wants us to do things together, and that is refreshing, and I like that. And I look forward to working with her. I am starting to do presentations here and there, but not so many. I'm learning to walk before I can run, because previously I just run and it didn't work out. And just a little bit about addiction, really, just to finish it off. I have suffered with that, but when you think of all the adverse childhood experiences I've had as a young person, even as an adult, I've seen things, that aren't nice. And I never had the therapeutic interventions. I've never had the counselling or therapy until recently. And it's making a massive difference. And I believe the NA program of Narcotics Anonymous is helping me out massively. I have a sponsor. I go to 4 or 5 meetings every week on an evening. I've just finished 32 sessions of active abstinence group, again learning about addiction, and I found that very helpful. And I'm over 7 months without a substance, which is remarkable, really. Considering when I think back to where I was, the last part of my using was isolated, lonely, painful, awful, irritable, discontent, just didn't want to be here, didn't want to be alive. And it was an horrendous experience, and I really don't want to do that again. And I hope I don't do that again. I've met some great friends in recovery, and I've got some very close friends from recovery. And I'm not friends with everybody, but also I can be amicable with most people. But there's a lot of jealousy in there, and a lot of ill people are in there, and unfortunately not everyone wants the best for you. Not everyone cares about your best interests and supporting you. That's a different story. So I'm gonna leave it here. I'm not sure if you've enjoyed this, because it's the first time I've ever done one of these. So if you want to leave a comment at the bottom, or tweet me on Twitter at Ashcroft Ben, I'm happy to engage and answer any questions. So thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.